Good evening and welcome. On behalf of the Kansas Corporation Commission, I want to welcome you to tonight's public hearing. My name is Susan Duffy, and I am serving as the chair of the Kansas Corporation Commission. Joining me this evening are my colleagues, Commissioner Dwight Keene and Andrew French. Would you like to say welcome, Commissioner Keene?
Yes, thank you, Chair Duffy. Indeed, this hearing is very important. We want to hear what your thoughts are. We want to hear what your concerns are, and we want to be listening very carefully to what those are. So I want to thank all of you who are giving us the benefit of your time to express your thoughts and to provide input into the process. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner French.
Well, good evening. I'm Commissioner Andrew French. I'll just echo same comments as Commissioner Keene. It looks on my screen like we have a great crowd. We had a very good crowd in Iola last night, and I'm glad to see that we've got another good crowd tonight. So look forward to hearing everyone's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. The Commission believes public participation and availability to participate are important to this decision-making process. To that end, last night, as Commissioner French said, a public hearing was held in the Iola High School Lecture Hall in the city of Iola. Commission staff and company representatives were available from 3 to 5 p.m. to meet with interested parties and the general public. At 6 p.m., all three commissioners participated in an in-person public hearing similar to what will occur tonight. To make that participation in the hearing as convenient as possible for interested parties, not only there in Girard, but across the state, this hearing is being held both live in person at the public library there in Crawford County and virtually via Zoom. It's also being live streamed on YouTube and will be available for viewing from our website. One thing to note is that while the entire public hearing will be available on YouTube, only the portion where the commissioners are present will be made a part of the official record in this docket. So now I call to order the public hearing in docket number 23 NETE 585 STG. This docket was initiated by NextEra Energy Transmission Southwest LLC to request approval of a line siting permit conferring the right to construct a single circuit 345 kV transmission line of approximately 83 miles in length across Coffey, Anderson, Allen, Bourbon, and Crawford counties. Tonight's hearing will operate in two parts. Part one will be an informational session. During this portion of the hearing, NextEra and commission staff will make brief presentations. Following the presentations, there will be an opportunity for you all to ask questions. The commissioners will not be present during the first part of this evening's public hearing. After the question and answer session in part one, the commission will rejoin the meeting to hear your comments. In part two, I will preside for the commission over the official public hearing. Comments made during part two will become part of the record. And as the commissioners have stated, we want to hear what you have to say. The commission does consider your comments important in this process. The legislature has charged the commission with the responsibility of protecting the rights of all interested parties, including those of the general public. If you plan to address the commission with comments in part two, and you're there at the Girard Library, make sure that you've signed in to the sheet located at the back of the room with the commission's public affairs staff, and I'm sure they've identified themselves to you. So that we ensure that we've got your name down. If you are participating by Zoom, you will be provided with instructions during part 2 on the virtual comment process. We will now recess, and I will turn the hearing over to the Commission's Assistant General Counsel, David Cohen, and he also serves as the pre-hearing officer in this docket. He will moderate part 1 of tonight's agenda. Again, we believe this Zoom method is a great way to enable a lot more participants in this process, as well as the in-person meeting. So this hybrid seems to be working well, and I think we can tell by the number of people who have signed up and are watching on Zoom, and all of you there at the library. The commission meeting stands in recess till the conclusion of part 1 of the hearing. David, I turn everything over to you, and commissioners, we will leave and come back on when we are invited back in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Duffy. We'll just give them a minute. Great. As stated earlier, we will begin part 1 with brief presentations by NextEra to explain the line setting application, and commission staff will explain how staff investigates the application. Afterwards, you will have the opportunity to ask questions. At this time, I would like to introduce Jacqueline Blakely, Executive Director for Asset Execution at NextEra, to discuss the line setting application.
adding a new path to allow electricity to flow through the region to give Kansas options for more cost-effective power to reach customers. So it is not it is a bi-directional line. So while we are investing, while we're building the project in the local economy with the construction jobs we'll be creating, we also, of course, will be using local vendors as much as practical, as well as domestically sourcing materials everywhere we can. And then as we build this new facility infrastructure, there are tax revenues generated for the state of Kansas that have been estimated by the SPP as well. All right, very good. So there are a wide range of factors and considerations that are taken as we make the preliminary routing process for a transmission line, which obviously is a no easy task. So everything from environmental impacts that have to be considered. So we look at wetlands as well as any threatened and endangered species. We have cultural and environmental resources we have to look at, archaeological potential there. And then, of course, there are tribal lands that we have to take into account, as well as any federal and state lands as we are routing the transmission line. And then, of course, we are looking to minimize impacts to residences and public facilities. There are also considerations with public airports, as you probably could see in the routing of the line as well, military training zones that we have to take into consideration. And then, of course, existing infrastructure that we have to work around, including everything from bridges. We've got oil and gas wells, we've got other transmission lines, as well as other towers and wind turbines that may be in the area. So at a high level, as far as the actual schedule for the project, so we are currently in the engineering, procurement, and regulatory approval process, which is where we are right now with Kansas and the KCC's approval of the line siting. So depending on the final decision by the KCC by the end of May, we could be in a position to start construction later this year in the third quarter, with the line being in service by 2025. And so we just thought we'd wrap up here as far as our formal remarks with the fact that we have our hotline available for questions, which I know people have used, as well as our mailbox that we have received emails through as well. And then our website, which has a lot of frequently asked questions and information about the line and where we are in the process of approvals. So that concludes our formal remarks. Mr. Lateef, I'll hand this to you.
Okay, can you all hear me? Thank you. Okay, good evening. My name is Hassan Lateef, and I am a litigation counsel, a litigation attorney who works for the Kansas Corporation Commission. I'm here to give you a high-level overview of how the commission operates, and some details about NextEra's line siting application and how the KCC reviews that. Okay. So the commission is a state agency headed by 3 commissioners. The commissioners collectively act as a body in determining matters that come before them. And the current commissioners are the chair, Susan Duffy, who you heard earlier, Commissioner Dwight Keene, and Commissioner Andrew French. The commissioners are appointed by the governor and serve staggered 4-year terms. So the commission has jurisdiction to oversee a number of industries, including electric, natural gas utilities. They also cover motor carriers, they're called common carriers. We have jurisdiction over some water providers, and also we have a conservation department that oversees oil and gas pipeline. I guess we'll wait. I'll wait and see if they can get it. Okay, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so the commission staff, are the state of Kansas employees that have a tremendous amount of professional knowledge and training in fields such as accounting, economics, engineering, and financial analysis. And during proceedings before the commission, staff advocates for the general public, which is another way of saying that they balance the interests of utility customers, the long-term health of the utility, and the state of Kansas. And staff attempts to weigh numerous competing interests and develop its own position that it believes is best for all the stakeholders involved. With respect to NextEra's request, NextEra has filed a line siting application in January. NextEra's application requests that the commission grant a siting permit that would confer on the company the right to construct a single circuit 345 kilovolt transmission line at approximately 83 to 90 miles in length through several counties. We talked about Coffey, Anderson, Allen, Bourbon, and Crawford counties. Further, NextEra requests that the commission confirm its finding that the necessity and reasonableness of the location of the line were established in the previous docket with commission's order in docket 22 NETE 419 CCN, and that this finding demonstrates that they've complied with the statute. To do that, staff, after the application was filed, staff has reviewed NextEra's application and supporting testimony in its entirety and audited it to verify the elements of this case. So some background on line siting in Kansas. The grounds for considering a line siting permit are determined by the Kansas statutes. A line siting permit is required before concrete steps can be taken by an electric utility, such as construction or site preparation within the proposed route. The commission is the arbiter of the necessity and reasonableness of the location of the proposed route of the new transmission line. The Kansas statutes, as determined by the legislature, require that the commission consider the benefit to both consumers in Kansas and consumers outside the state and economic development benefits in Kansas. So once an application for line siting permit is filed, the commission staff conducts its independent review of the company's proposal. During staff's investigation, they review the routing study and determine if the process used sound reasoning to determine the proposed route, and if all necessary factors are included in that judgment. Staff also reviews the potential impacts of the route and gives the recommendation on the proposal. After its investigation is complete, staff submits written testimony and indicates its position on the application. And staff actively participates in the permit process by advocating for its positions. The staff's role is not to help one party over another, but rather to provide an independent assistance to the commissioners in balancing competing interests and evaluating the total impact of the application on the public interest. So staff filed testimony in this docket on February 21st. And staff's testimony can be accessed through the KCC's website. If you click on Your Opinion Matters button and then clicking on docket details. If you already reviewed staff's testimony or are reviewing it in the future and would like to make a public comment, we are accepting public comments tonight in the second portion of the hearing today. Additionally, staff is present tonight and will be around after the meeting as well. If you haven't had a chance to talk to Leo today, earlier today, and if possible, can answer some of the questions you might have. So there will be an administrative hearing in this docket on April 26th. And to give you an idea of how administrative hearings work, the hearings before the commission look very similar to a trial that you would see in district court. The commissioners act as judges. They hear and weigh the evidence, and witnesses testify in front of them. And there are issues that the commission orders can be appealed to higher courts. So in this case, staff would act as a party to the case, and they develop and defend their own position, recognizing that our duty is owed to the state of Kansas and to the general public. Here's a visualization of how it's set up. At the top of the visualization is the three commissioners. And in a formal proceeding like this, in a line siting permit application, there are different parties. This includes the utility, in this case, NextEra, commission's technical staff, as well as interveners representing a variety of interests. Interveners could be landowners, other electric utilities that are affected by the construction of the transmission line, or various other entities. So as you can see, all these groups are separate parties to the case. And just like in a court, it's the attorney's job to present their client's case to the commissioners for their decision. And that's the dynamics of the proceeding before the commission. In this docket, there are remaining deadlines, and I'll try to kind of give you an overview of what is to come in this docket and how they will decide the line siting application. Under the current schedule, and probably the most important for the public, is the public comment period will end on 5 p.m. at 5 p.m. on March 9th. So if you intend to submit a comment in this docket, you must do so, submit those comments by that date. And I'll explain a little bit more after this, how you can make written comments. If you don't decide to make a public comment today in person, you can submit a written comment in other ways. After the public comment period ends, NextEra will provide rebuttal testimony on March 21st to staff's position and to the intervener's testimony that was already filed. Then NextEra will file responses to the public comments, and those will be filed on March 28th. And staff and intervener responses to the public comments that you all make will be filed by March 31st. And finally, NextEra will get a chance to respond to staff and interveners' responses to the public comment on April 7th. A commission, an evidentiary hearing is scheduled in this docket for April 26th. And that's when we will have evidentiary hearing on arguments on the case. And the commission has a deadline to decide this matter on or before May 24th. So that's an overview of what is to come in the docket. If you have additional questions about this case, there'll be a chance to ask questions here in a few moments, and also commission staff, which is Leo over here to my right. He's available if you approach him after the hearing, and you can try to answer questions you have. Or you can contact the Commission's Office of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection. And I'll give you on the next slide information on how to do that. They also have a flyer, I believe, that has some of this information if you so if you want to decide to contact them after this hearing. So this is what I want to leave you with on how you can submit a public comment in the docket or follow the case on our website. The first way you can make a comment is here tonight, following these presentations, and after the Q&A session, we will have a public comment period that will be your chance to offer your testimony on the record when the commissioners return to the meeting. Or you can send comments to our Public Affairs Office, and you can do that online, by mail, or by phone. And the information for each of these three options is on the screen. And I believe they have a handout as well at the table outside on how to contact them. You can also read all the testimony that's been filed, all the filings. You can read their application by accessing the docket on our website. What you do is you go to the docket filings tab and enter the docket number, and you can see all the filings that have been made. The docket number for this case is on the projector there. It's 23 NETE 585 STG. And if you put that into the website, you can see all the filings that have been made. But on behalf of staff, I want to thank you all for coming out, and we look forward to your comments that you have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lateef. We will now take questions for NextEra and KCC staff. I would like to remind everyone that the formal public comment portion of the hearing does not begin until part 2, when the commissioners rejoin us. Feel free to ask questions at this time, but save your comments on the application until the appropriate time so they can be recorded and added to the record in this case. Since we have both virtual and live audience this evening, we will alternate between the two locations when taking questions tonight, so everyone has an opportunity. If you are in the Zoom hearing, please raise your hand, use the raise hand function in Zoom to signal you would like to ask a question. I'll now introduce Linda Berry, the Commission's Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection, who is in Girard, and she will explain the Q&A process there.
Thank you, David. I will let you know that we were not able to hear you due to an audio problem. So I'll try to recap what David said just briefly about the Q&A. Since we have audiences both online and in person, we'll be alternating the questions. So David has instructed the people attending on Zoom how to raise their hand using the Zoom app to indicate they have a question. And here, what I'd like to do is if you would like to ask a question, we'll alternate between Zoom and the live hearing. We have a microphone set up here right on the front row. If you could line up behind the microphone, we would allow you to ask your question, and we'll get someone to answer that, whether it be our staff or NextEra or whoever is appropriate to address the concern or question you have. So David, I'm going to go ahead and ask if anyone has a question, and we can start with our live audience. And then we'll go back to Zoom and see if you have someone waiting. Is there anyone in the room here who would like to step up to the microphone and ask a question? Okay, well, we'll go back to Zoom and let you think about that, and we'll come back and I'm pretty positive we'll probably have at least a few questions here. So David, we'll go back to the Zoom audience.
Yeah, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Well, no one has raised their hand on Zoom yet. So I would encourage, who's brave enough to get us started?
Okay, we have a taker. We have someone walking to the microphone. Thank you very much. If you could state your name and the county that you live in, that would be helpful
It's all good.
prior to your question.
My name is Brian Coover. I live in Neosho County. I guess my question is how we got here. Since the Southwest Power Pool was formed, we haven't added any significant generation except wind power in Kansas. When you apply for a transmission authority to the Southwest Power Pool, they tell you what it's going to cost to add transmission to get the power that you're generating to the place that it's going to go. The congestion issue we have at Wolf Creek wasn't a problem before the Southwest Power Pool was formed. There are 3,000 megawatt lines that leave Wolf Creek, and it's a 1.2 megawatt plant. In at least the last 20 years, I don't think there's been a derate because of a transmission line loss more than 2 or 3 times. So the reason we're building this line is because the congestion problem that we have overbuilt generation farther west that wants to come back on that line when wind blows. My question is, why are the ratepayers in the Southwest Power Pool area going to pay for this line when it's primarily being built because of congestion that's there because the people who built the generation didn't pay for the transmission to get it out of there? Is my question clear?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Is Justin Grady, are you available to take that question?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Linda, for throwing me under the bus here. No, I thought the gentleman's question was really, really good. It really was. And you know what, I would point, I suppose, to the fact that that we have built the Emporia Energy Center natural gas fired generation turbines that Evergy owns outside of Emporia. But in terms of investor-owned utilities, the gentleman was absolutely correct that there hasn't been a lot of new generation built in the state since the formation of the Southwest Power Pool. There has been an incredible amount of renewable generation added to the generation portfolio, however. I think the short answer there is that, you know, for a host of policy reasons in the state of Kansas, the KCC doesn't have any authority or control over renewable generation that wants to come to the system. I mean, we have a system in Kansas today where a wind farm or a solar farm can become an independent power producer, and they don't really need any state governmental entities permission to do that. I know there are local permitting processes at the county level, but you know, for 20 years now, we've had a legislative system and a legal framework where a renewable power entity, or really any power entity that wants to be an independent power producer that's not in the rate base of an investor-owned utility, can do that. And we have a pretty open environment for that. And there can be a debate about whether that's the right approach or not, but that is the legal framework that we've operated under in this state for a long time. The way I think about the transmission system is really similar to a lot of other infrastructure that we build in this state and in this country, in that if the gentleman was absolutely correct that if a wind farm wants to build wants to connect to the transmission system, and that action directly causes cost increases, then the wind farm has to pay for those cost increases. But if there is excess capacity to use, then the wind farm can use that capacity until it gets to the point where there are congestion issues or there are capacity issues. And, you know, I sort of view that as a lot of other infrastructure projects. You know, if you have a road or an airport, or if you have an existing pipeline that, you know, that exists and there's excess capacity, then economic development can move in and industry can utilize that infrastructure until you get to the point where you have to build new. And so that's not just a Kansas policy, that's a national energy policy, really, that's oriented and governed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and the tariffs that our regional transmission organization operates under. You know, there can be debates about whether it needs to change and whether it's optimal or not, but I think that's my best attempt at explaining how we got to where we are today in terms of the surplus of renewable energy that we have in this state.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have, David, I'll ask you, do you have anyone on Zoom that would like to
So
ask?
far, nobody's raised their hand.
Okay, we'll continue on. I think we have someone here who would like to ask a question.
Good evening. Thank you for being here in Girard. My name is Virginia Maka, and I live in Allen County. I attended the Allen County meeting last night in Iola. I asked on the necessity of this line for Kansas ratepayers to have to pay another tariff and transmission fees. So when this project was bid, and it was awarded in November of 21, I believe, NextEra filed in December of 21 for some kind of subsidy with FERC, and they were awarded $85.2 million. Can you explain why you would be able to collect a subsidy on a line you haven't built yet, and why you would be guaranteed by the federal government, FERC, to be 100% whole during this whole project, that you would never lose a dime? But yet the rate holders get to pay for transmission. I would just like to know how you get that subsidy.
Sure, thank you. And my name is Tracy Davis. I'm a senior counsel with NextEra. Can you guys hear me? I can't. Oh, my microphone. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. So
Tracy, on Zoom, sorry to interrupt you. On Zoom, you are coming across a little light.
I'll try to lean in. Is that better?
It's a lot better.
Okay, great. So I think you may be referring to, there's I think as was mentioned, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. They are the federal entity that oversees our transmission rates that we will ultimately recover. And they have a policy that, applies across the country, where for transmission developers that bid on these types of projects, there are certain incentives that can be given. One of those is something called an abandonment incentive. That is something where if something occurs during the development of this project and we're unable to complete it for certain circumstances, mostly outside of our control, then we would be able to recover our costs. You're correct in that. We don't receive that unless we have to, for some reason, something occurs and we have to walk away from the project. That's certainly not our intention. Our intention is to build the project and to put it into service and complete it, on our cost containment that we committed to the SPP and to the Kansas Corporation Commission. Does that help answer your question?
Well, it does, but during testimony in the Senate hearing, it was said that you would be 100% whole on this project and never lose a dime at the end. So that money, whatever that amount is, because you can exceed that contract, it goes back to the rate holders, and the line not being really deemed necessary for citizens in Kansas, we're paying 16.7 or 4% of the total cost of this line. So that's the part I don't understand, why we should even pay for it when there's money there to be gotten.
Yeah, so just quickly, the Kansas Corporation Commission has looked at the necessity of this project, and they did find that it was needed and in the public interest of Kansas. So, we're here as part of the line siting process to get our proposed route approved. And so we fully anticipate being able to move forward and, assume if the Kansas Corporation Commission approves that, then we would move forward and build the line.
Would there ever be a consideration to put this project into 2 lines as it was proposed at one time in 2019? And why in the world would you diagonally go through a section of the state, rendering almost every section of land useless when it comes to agriculture or cattle production?
So yeah, I'm not familiar with the 2 sections of line that were proposed in 2019. I would just say that the SPP, when they identified this project as needed in their 2019 study, and then they put it out for bid, they identified 2 endpoints that they believed needed more transmission infrastructure: the Wolf Creek substation in Coffey County and the Blackberry substation in Jasper County, Missouri. And so our proposal was to connect those 2 points. And so we've, put forward our route to SPP and have now filed that route with the KCC.
Well, it seems as though that there hasn't been enough information, maybe. And this hasn't been very transparent, especially for these people in Crawford County. A lot of people haven't been notified. There's been several maps of 5 different routes, 3 different routes. So I think the problem we're having is the SPP and the KCC, and what are your roles? Because who has control and final say on these lines? If KCC is overruled by the SPP and they add 10 solar fields, we have no say on that. Is that correct?
Well, I believe, as Mr. Grady mentioned, it is correct that the KCC doesn't does not approve solar projects or new independent power producer projects that are cited. We also don't have any control of that. We're just here to build the transmission line. Yeah, and I'm sorry, ma'am, just to follow up on your comment about transparency. I mean, we have been in many of these communities many times since filing our CCN application last year in a number of different forums. And we're happy to be here tonight as well to answer questions and hopefully clear up any confusion that may still exist.
So, you compare the projects that have come before you, say the grain belt. who never received a siting permit. They had thousands and thousands of inputs for the certificate of convenience and necessity. They had hundreds of town halls. They had I understand that the law has some, that you guys read it like 120 days. But when you don't really have a starting point, when you start going from town to town, I know Allen County, we didn't even have one meeting during the certificate of convenience and necessity was given, yet we had a couple of landowners that fought against that necessity. And so, on the transparency end, if you put the timelines together, I don't think NextEra has really done their due diligence, but that's my personal opinion. I think this is why we get into these, meetings like this with a lot of people questioning what the heck is going on. The landowners list was only made visible to the public when asked by the Senate Utility Company to do that. And I was there. So a week before these meetings was the only time we got to see who the other landowners were on your list. So I don't think that was very transparent for the public when they went to go look for it.
There's nobody on Zoom yet,
Okay.
although I guess I'll just take this opportunity to remind those in line that this should be about asking questions. And I know you all want to make comments, but I just want to make sure those comments get heard by the commissioners. So we should hold those until part 2 of the meeting. And at this point, Linda, I think, why don't you I'll just jump in if someone actually raises their hand on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here in Girard that would like to step up and ask a question? They hear. This is just an opportunity for you to ask questions of the parties involved. The commissioners are here to hear your public comments. And that's why David had said earlier, if you have a comment, save it for when the commissioners come back. And we will allow plenty of time for you to make your comment. And that's what goes on the record. It's a public. Right.
That seems counterproductive.
I'm going to ask maybe Hassan or David to address that question.
This portion of is an informational session for you to get information about the line and answer questions that you have. The part that's required by statute is the public comment period, which just allows for a comment period. But we understood that you guys would want to ask questions, so we added this section to ask for Q&A to be here for that part. But the statute requires just a public comment period where they would listen to your statements. But so we added this so that you'd be able to ask questions.
Yeah, so I didn't hear the question that was asked, although based on the context, I think it was just part of why we're doing it this way.
The questions are for the parties who are here now to answer. The commissioners are going to decide the case, and they're going to take your input of your comments, and then they're going to use that in their decision they make.
But I can't ask the commissioner the question.
No, not in that portion of you can ask questions now.
What he's trying to say, it doesn't matter whether they know about it or not. Yeah, you ask the question to these individuals, they'll give you the answer you're looking for. And then during the comment time, you can tell the commissioners how you feel about their proposal. So if we don't like the proposal, you say, I want to know what your input is on putting in this transmission. And they will give you their input, but they don't want to hear your question, because that's what this is for, to answer your questions that you have. But what if my question is to them? Well, they should have already gave you the answer that you asked.
The commission.
No, these people sitting right here.
But that's what I'm asking is.
No, you have to convince the commissioners why you feel you want it or don't want it.
Okay, so why don't we continue on with our questions? It looks like we have someone waiting
Yes,
to ask a question.
Martinson from Farlington. I guess I'm confused. Every once in a while I hear the deal that like this is new path. There's already a line that runs from point A to B. And now they're wanting to run a second one beside it. Why can't there something be done with the line that's there? They're going to replace it. Because I was 9 years old when they put that first line in. Why can't something be done to incorporate with them? That electricity is coming from Wolf Creek to Blackberry on this same line. And most of the people do not dispute the deal that, okay, there's an easement there already. They're wanting to run another easement in there. And in that contract, I read it, and I'm not a very smart person. But I figured out that they're going to pay us flat rate for the property. And then they can let anybody else, without even asking us, bring another line right in with that deal. Is that correct?
No, sir. The easement agreement should be specific just to this line. It shouldn't, I mean, it doesn't allow us to add additional infrastructure. I'm not sure. Maybe I didn't understand your question.
My question is, okay, we've already got one line in there. How come something can't be done with this line and easement that is there? It's not a new path. They're running another one right beside the one that goes through my farm. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
And then in the contract, it says on that that new contract that your energy can allow anybody else to use that easement without even asking me. I could wind up with a substation, and I've seen this happen. They'll run it in, and the next thing you know, there's a substation on your property. And I don't understand why there has to be two lines. Why can't something be done with this one and stack these lines or something? I've been all over the United States working construction from Florida to Minnesota, back east. And they have these lines and they stack them up. They got one below, 3 lines below it, and they go up above it, and another 3 up there.
Wait, let me try to answer that if I could. This is Leo Hanos. I'm with the KCC. There is an option that's out there for the commission's consideration to build that 25-mile section as a double circuit. This is a good example for your question, sir, about asking questions now that you can bring comments to the commission. That has not been decided. That's up before the commission. So if you wish to express an opinion to them or a comment and the reasons why this would be a good idea to have a double circuit line rather than 2 circuits collated, that's what the comment period coming up is for. That'd be a great time to tell them that. The commission will take those comments into consideration as part of the record, because they have to make a decision on what's on the record. So you put it on the record in your comment period. At that time, they can then deliberate on that and come up with whatever their decision will be.
Just ask the question for everybody here. Why can't we do that? Nobody's answered that question.
The question right now, and I think it's in testimony that's filed by both NextEra and by me. We've looked at the cost of that. It's about $10 million more to build it with 2 companies operating 1 double circuit line than it would be for 2 companies to build 2 lines. The way the cost estimates worked. Is it worth the $10 million to build it as a double circuit line? That's the question before the commission. And that's what they will decide after the hearing.
Well, the other part is, with the way they're gonna spread this out, this brings this thing another 150 foot closer to my house. We got guys, a person right now, I got a neighbor, they're gonna run right over the corner of his swimming pool almost. There's another house on up the road, up the way there. It is his uncle and aunt's place. They're gonna run right over the top of her house. These deals, you know, I mean, there could be something done here. No, and most people will not even dispute this. I think, but who I've talked to, they double stack this thing, they're gonna redo the old one. Why not double stack it then and do it that way and kind of get past all this? Because right now, if they're gonna double this set and they're gonna bring it within about 120 feet of my house, I'm not signing nothing. I can tell you that right now. I don't need your money. It don't change my lifestyle one little bit. I can make that money in 6 months or a year.
So again, that question is before the commission now, and that will be part of their decision. So you raise a valid point. Raise it with the commission again, put it on the record. And I would also encourage you to work with NextEra if you have a line really close to your house to see if there's something they can do to their design to accommodate it.
Well, there's 3 or 4 places right there within a 10-mile stretch that they're gonna go right over the corner of a yard, or they're gonna be right over a person's house. They're gonna bring it closer to me, which is the one that's there is probably within 300 feet.
If you look at past siting dockets that the commission has decided, those questions have come up. Granted, most of those were in western Kansas. There aren't as many houses that they're threading a line through. But at the same time, they've worked with those to move things around for those people in the past. It can be done again. Just bring those points up to the commission, and in your comments, you can file written comments with exact, precise details. And that's what the next schedule that Hassan showed here on there that's coming up here this month. We'll take those in consideration, present them to the commission. They'll decide it as a deliberative body that they are. That's what this process is set up for.
My name is Roger Lomshak. I'm a Crawford County resident. Have a couple of questions, if I can be permitted to. The answer this gentleman gave about the $10 million difference being a deciding factor brings up a question. Does that factor in the loss of productivity of that land for permanent use and the destruction of property values?
No, it does not.
Okay, so that might be
That's a good point.
something the commission may want to factor in. That's going to bump that over quite a bit, I'll bet.
And typically that's when we see those kind of things in rebuttal. You know, you see a chance for rebuttal testimony. Those are the type of things that get raised by other parties.
Right.
So they all come before everybody.
How many miles is this line going to run? You said 90 something, or what was it again? 92 miles, and how wide?
The right of way.
Like
is
150?
feet, yes, 75
150?
feet on.
I don't know how many miles it comes out to, or how many acres, but that's pretty significant.
It's 150.
150 is what I
right
saw
way,
on paper.
75 on each side of the center line of the pole.
You know, it's a pretty significant loss of productivity if you factor all the lost land in. As well as the property values. Nobody's going to pay more for property with that line running through it.
I think the points you're just raising would be excellent for you to come back to the microphone and say that before the commission, so it gets.
Well,
on the
I
record.
guess you answered my question. That hasn't been factored in at all. The impact on people financially, long term.
Not that I've seen, no, sir.
Okay, or the loss of tax revenue due to loss of property value.
I didn't see that either. It was strictly construction costs that we looked at.
Okay. So my original question was earlier, the comment was made that one of the things that was factored in was what was the net benefit to Kansas? That's one of the things that has to be considered. I'm saying that wrong, I think. Do one of you know what that verbiage was in the requirements for the commission to consider?
Yeah, it had to do with the benefit to Kansans, people outside the state, and also just the economic benefit of it.
So how is this an economic benefit to Kansas?
I'm going to ask Justin to jump back in here.
Okay.
You want to talk about the economics of that on the benefit side?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great question. So, I think it was mentioned a little bit earlier by NextEra, but this line is not a single directional line. It is a bidirectional line. It's the entire purpose of the transmission line was to relieve congestion that is currently occurring in central and eastern Kansas. You know, the earlier gentleman was very astute when he mentioned that, and that is what's occurring is that, and there's no question that it's primarily, if not exclusively, additional wind generation from western and central Kansas that's creating that congestion. But that congestion is showing itself today in higher wholesale power prices for co-ops and cities and utility customers in eastern and southeastern Kansas. And so, you know, if you look at the engineering analysis that went into the original reason for this line being created, there was something called a target area in southeast Kansas. It was explicitly designed to allow cheaper wholesale power to be delivered in that area of the state. And so that's why it's an economic benefit to the state of Kansas. One last quick thing is, you know, we're not an island, whether, you know, fortunately or unfortunately. In Kansas, we're part of the Southwest Power Pool. Evergy and every other utility in the state of Kansas purchases all of the power that it needs to serve its customers every single day from the Southwest Power Pool at wholesale market prices. And they sell every megawatt hour that's produced out of Wolf Creek and Jeffrey Energy Center and all of the rest of them into the market every day. And so, you know, whether we like it or not, our fortunes are tied to that 14 state region and the ability to move power around economically and affordably. It impacts Kansans. It does. It impacts the cost of power that Kansans are able to purchase from the integrated marketplace from the Southwest Power Pool. So you know, we're not giving away our nuclear power. We're not delivering power to Missouri. That is not the purpose of this line. It truly is about better, free flowing wholesale, more affordable energy for Kansans and for, you know, for the other surrounding states around Kansas too, because we're part of the Southwest Power Pool.
So if we're not giving away our nuclear power, why is this thing running from a nuclear power plant?
It connects to a substation outside of the Wolf Creek nuclear power plant, right? So I said in testimony earlier before the legislature that it connects to a substation that is called the Wolf Creek substation. And it's accurate to say that, I mean, the substation only exists because Wolf Creek drops power onto that substation. But because of the integrated nature of the transmission system, that substation also takes a bunch of power from wind generating units from Western Kansas and Central Kansas, and it takes power from the Emporia Energy Center. You know, it's all interconnected. And so the purpose of this line is to relieve congestion on the substation and in the area of Wolf Creek. It is not a single directional line with the purpose of moving Wolf Creek power to Missouri. That's just not the purpose of the line. It's unfortunately, it has been reported that way. I've done this for 20 years. I've never seen it more inaccurately reported of what the purpose of that line was. But that's just not what the purpose of it is.
Hello, my name is Dean David. I live by Farlington, Kansas. Are there any regulations on how close these high voltage power lines are supposed to be to homes?
I'm not aware of any Kansas requirements for setbacks from homes. We have.
I was told by one of the representatives of NextEra, this route was already pretty much set, but they would work with landowners. What does that mean?
Well, the way that I think about, the route is a long 94-mile, 92-mile route. But when we can work with landowners within their property and microsite poles to precisely place them in areas that are, better, the landowners, you all know this land obviously the best of anyone. So our hope is to work with folks and be able to help us, put it in places that are maybe more convenient or more accommodating to the landowner's continued use of the line, including around houses or barns or other, infrastructure on your property.
Don't you think running it parallel to an existing power line limits your flexibility as far as proximity to houses?
Yeah, so I mean, we have looked at this and Mr. Henos mentioned it, that we have looked closely at this. Siting along existing infrastructure is a pretty common industry standard. When you're trying to minimize overall impacts to landowners, going along areas where existing lines or pipelines or railroads are, keeps the overall impacts lower, although we do recognize, there is an impact on the landowners along that section. But it is, pretty common industry practice to try to keep things, along existing infrastructure.
But when you run it parallel on existing property owners, you're doubling the effect on their property. Is that correct?
I understand.
If it just seems to make sense to me if it was incorporated. I don't want it on my property at all. I've already got one power line. Can they cross it over and move it onto the south side of the power line? So it'd be further away from my home.
I'm sorry, you were saying, could you move it on the south side of that
Could you
Evergy?
cross over the top of the existing power line to move it further away from my home?
We'd be happy to talk to you. I know our land agents are here and can look at your exact property and see. I can't, answer right now, but
Well, I think it makes more sense to me if the lines were incorporated. You guys would have more flexibility as far as threading the needle through some of these property owners' properties and they're addressing their concerns. When there's just one power line and you stack the power lines, $10 million over 100 years or however long this power line is going to be here, wouldn't that make more sense?
well, and we did look at this and we worked closely with Evergy to evaluate this. There are a lot of complexities around having two utilities own lines on a single set of poles. Particularly their plans are not set on when they're going to rebuild that line. They are now thinking it may not be until 2030 that they actually do that. And that creates a lot of complexity when we talk about, what are we building it? Is their line still live while we're building a line? And then having two utilities operating lines, on a shared set of poles and a shared right of way does lead to a lot of complication beyond just the cost of it.
What's the noise level of this power line going to be as far as humming and that sort of noises?
Natalie, do you want to answer that?
Sound of this transmission line, it's depending upon the voltage, the size of the conductor that we use. For newer lines like this one, sound is not going to be any louder than the ambient noise.
What does that mean?
In decibels. At any decibels.
I don't have a decibel. But it's not going to be any louder than when you stand, let's say, in a light ring.
So it's going to make noise.
It makes sense, yes. Well, those are older lines, newer ones.
Has there been any studies done on the electromagnetic fields, and how high those levels will be?
But you also have EMF throughout your homes, surrounding all your common appliances. So,
So has there been a study done?
because EMF is everywhere, There's been many studies done by science.
So what's the recommendation for how close a power line of that voltage should be to property owners' homes? What would you recommend?
I'm here just to answer on the.
Nobody can answer that question. There's no recommendations on how close he should be to homes. No one can answer that.
There are no statewide limitations on power line proximity to residences. And in fact, there are numerous examples of high voltage transmission lines being in close proximity to residences already in the state. And there's been, no reported health issues or anything like that as a result of existing high voltage lines in close proximity to residences. And so, yeah, if you're asking me, I would live next to a high voltage transmission line. From a health standpoint, I wouldn't have any concerns.
I don't think you come to say you want a power line within a couple hundred feet of your house or less. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to continue on the EMF question, so say you put this in and then like children and families and everything, they live near this power line and it does come to fruition that it did cause the leukemia or the brain cancer or whatever. Who's responsible? Who can that person sue for the damages done? I mean, who's responsible for that? Is it the state of Kansas? Is it the county? Is it you? I mean, I don't know who.
There's no support for that hypothetical, so I
But
can't.
what if down the road, is it like in the contract, who would be responsible? Like, or is it just not, you're just saying it's not possible? Is it in the contract to say it's not possible or?
It's a hypothetical legal question without any basis in evidence, so I can't answer it.
Okay, so if 10 years down the road, someone has health issues from this, you're not responsible, right?
There's no basis for any health concerns in being in.
If someone
proximity.
has a health concern, who can they address that to? Who takes care of that? Is that you or who is it? Is it the county? Is it the state?
There's no evidence for health concerns from a transmission line.
Okay, just no evidence. All right.
Okay. Please
Yeah,
go ahead
actually-
and state your name and your question.
I'm Laura Hawkins from Coffey County. And I beg to differ with the health issues because we have an existing line on our property. And I personally cannot stand underneath of it or out to the side of it very long. Or when I'm under it immediately, I can feel it going through my body. And if I touch somebody, it shocks me. And if I touch a vehicle, it's a pretty good shock. It's not that way for all my family members, but it is for a couple of us. So to be under constantly now, the contract that we have with the one that's already present, it says that we cannot, I find it ironic that you guys say that there's no structures that you guys are limited from going over and stuff. But in the contract we have, we can't put structures within the easement. So if we can't put the structures, then how can you go over our, as he was saying, the swimming pools, our homes? That interferes with all of the electronics. It deals with our phones in that area. We can't use our phone. there is a lot of issues with technology right under them and feeling it going through you. What are the long-term effects? I don't know. I do not stand under them very long, and I do not I stay from touching people and objects from being around those lines. And as far as that, we have we are cervid livestock producers, and we have a facility up there, and our high fence is on the, well, outside the easement of it, and the voltage is so high that you can see sparks on the chains at all times. And during rain, it's a lot worse. It gets rusted through. We have to change the chains on it. Clear around, this is on, let's see, up here is the existing line that goes through. Our high fence is up here. Clear down here on the south is where they want to put this new line. We already, when we go into our south gate, which is the gate we use most of the time, because of the power line up here and stuff is a major, one of the reasons. But when we go down here, this chain down here, you still see sparks. It's still sparking stuff. We're still going to have to change the chain on it. Now, if they're proposing to put this line right through our land, we have 2 tracts of land that it's going to be going through. And they want to cut out all of these trees. We have livestock in here. Many people may not know the cervid industry, which are domesticated deer. We don't have the capability of taking our deer to a USD inspection site or something like that. The only way we can harvest our deer is on our land, unless you sell them to other owners and other harvesting facilities and stuff. In our case, it's affecting these 2 tracts here, but we also own another tract about a mile away, mile and a half away from there. And it affects it as well, because we raise our livestock there as well. We take them up here because this is our facility where we can harvest them. That's our only means of selling them for the harvesting part, because we usually, well, with licensing and stuff, it's a long story, but this is our main thing of harvesting our deer. You put this up here, you take these out, that limits. The other thing is our fence is going to have to be moved. Are you guys going to pay to move our high fence further north? It cost us tens of thousands of dollars to put that fence in. And then it is going to limit the space, so we can't have as many livestock in there, because we breed livestock up there as well. And it's going to limit our space for them to be in there, so we can't have as many livestock. That reduces our income. It's going to cost us tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And with taking these trees out, we already have people that shoot our livestock. Local authorities really don't do anything. They've shot about 40 head. Nobody will do anything. Nobody will offer to help put up a reward. Ours, isn't that big of a reward, but anyhow, with everything, nobody wants to step forward and claim it either. But you take these trees out, that's going to open up more area for them to shoot our deer. So are you guys going to replace this with a solid wall to prevent it from shooting more of our livestock?
Well, I think all of those concerns are very valid and would be things that we would want to talk with you about and work with you on. And our land team would be, available here and able to talk with you about all this.
Because like I said, we've been building this since 2005. My husband's getting ready to retire in a few years. We're planning on living on this income afterwards. This reduction of income is going to annihilate our entire 3 tracts. of livestock. Are you gonna come, accommodate that?
Thank you for your question. I do want to just take a minute and remind everyone, if you do have more of a comment that you want the commissioners to hear, please wait until they come back in the room so that they can, I'm starting to get a little concerned that some of these things you really do want the commission to hear. And so questions right now are great. But if you just have a general comment or opinion that you want the commissioners to know about as they weigh this decision, please wait until part 2. And go ahead with your question.
I'm John Parsons. I'm a landowner in Crawford County. And on your site, it said, our goal is to achieve real zero, meaning we will be carbon emission free no later than 2045. And I think everyone wants to save the country. No one wants to destroy this earth, but it also says that NextEra Energy, the one to build Montana's largest wind farm. So the first gentleman, Burlington's been up there, the power plant, for what, 45 years, 50? When was it? Yeah, so it's been up there all that time and this line hasn't been needed. You're not going to be shipping that power out of here. So is this just for wind farms and solar farms? Yes or no?
I would say no. This line is being built.
It's for other things too.
It's for other, there's a number of benefits for it. As Mr. Grady mentioned, it's to help power, all power, whatever it, whatever type.
But the main thing is to
generates it.
add wind and solar
No, sir.
because you want to be emission free, right? Carbon free.
No, sir. We're here next. So there's many companies within the NextEra umbrella. Our company that we're here representing is intended to build transmission infrastructure. This line was identified as needed by the Southwest Power Pool.
And the ultimate goal isn't wind farms or solar, since you want to be carbon free.
Yes, sir. That's our generation business.
Jacob Cochran, Crawford County. My thing is, so it doesn't seem like this line is very popular, but say the KCC avoids talking to any of these people and cares what they think. Once it's approved, is there anything they can do to stop it? Is it eminent domain? And that's a question. Serious question. What we want to know. Because it's already in the works. I mean, obviously, you guys are hearing it. You guys sound like you're all on board for it, whether or not you are or not. But if you guys disregard all these guys' opinions, is there nothing they can do once you guys approve it?
So the statute allows the legislature, as put into law, allows for, if the permit is approved, they can start site construction. They can start the construction on it, site preparation, and they could use eminent domain to obtain land.
So Joe doesn't want it in his county, in Coffey County. Neosho County doesn't want it, and Crawford doesn't want it. Say 20 people don't want it, and they refuse to sign anything. Are you guys going to go ahead and take it? That's the question.
I mean, you guys can approach it through negotiations with the company. The company has the opportunity or the right to, if it's approved, to use eminent domain to take the land. But I don't know if there's opportunities or other options that they have. I mean, there's always a chance, the opportunity to talk to your legislature, because they're the ones who make the statute that allows for it.
So are they willing to reroute instead of stomping on the rights of these people that don't want the line?
I can't speak for the company, but I mean,
Are you guys willing to make a, say, 10-mile detour to change that instead of going and stepping on these guys' rights?
Well, and that's what this line siting process is here to determine, right? We've proposed a route to the Kansas Corporation Commission that we developed, through lots of different inputs, including talking to landowners, hearing from landowners throughout this process. So we're definitely here to still continue to hear that feedback. Once we have an approved route, then yeah, we will go forward with construction.
So, okay, so for all these people that want to move it away from their house, what do they need to do? Where do they need to go?
I mean, I would definitely recommend talking to our land team and putting your comments into the KCC process as well.
So are you guys, is this a firm date? Are you guys willing to maybe do a little more research, possibly talk to a few more people and move the date? Are you guys so set on the date for 2025 being the completion date where you guys want to push it back a little bit to give this, because it's not needed right now. It's not. So you guys willing to push that date back a little bit, maybe give these guys a little bit more time to maybe negotiate a little bit more with you? Because the May 24th deadline's coming quick. I mean, they're not going to be able to negotiate this that fast. So
our commitment to SPP did identify this project as being needed by January of 26. We committed to them to bring it in early because that provides additional benefits to SPP. So that is our goal.
so it can be pushed back because you guys, 2026 is another year from what you guys are setting your
Our
deadline for.
commitment to SPP, which we, essentially signed a contract with SPP to bring it in 2025. And so that.
Okay, so you guys are moving forward, is what you're saying. So, okay.
I would like to address the wildlife.
Excuse me,
that's going
sir,
to be-
could we get your name and your county, please?
Oh, I'm Chris Pike. I'm from Crawford County. Everybody in this room knows me.
Thank you.
The question I have is, what about the spotted skunk that was just found up in the northern part of the county in southern Bourbon County? Has that been included in this wildlife study that you say you guys have done?
I'll ask our environmental lead, Kim.
My name is Kim Austin, and I work on environmental matters for NextEra. So the spotted skunk is one species of concern. We have been in conversation with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, continue to work on those types of issues.
How
And then-
long have you been in contact with them? Because this has just happened within the last 5 days from the information I've been presented.
Well, sir, we have a meeting scheduled with Wildlife and Parks, so it's a constant conversation with them. We weigh their concerns on the project. At this point, when we talk to them, they haven't had any concerns with our route, and we continue to work through any new science that's been presented to them. We work through that with them because we have to go get a permit from them if we have impacts. And at this point, that's what we continue to work through.
So what would be the benefit of having this power line where this new breed has came up? That's not normally in Kansas, it's on the endangered list. I can't go out there and kill one of these on my property because of that. But yet you can put a power line in there?
Sir, what's your question?
My question is, have you considered the spotted skunk?
Yes, we have considered the spotted skunk.
So you've known about this. Before you walked in the door today, you knew that the spotted skunk was just found in this part of the county.
We know about information that has been published through Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks. They provide us information.
But you
and
don't
we-
do your own study, correct?
We do our own
You
study,
do
sir.
do. So you found the spotted skunk as well too, right? I'm asking.
We personally have not found individual spotted skunks on this project to this date.
Okay, so that's something else that needs to be considered before we can even go through with this, right? So that would be another reason to push the date back, considering this is something new that's happened within the last 5 days.
Sir, whatever information that you're citing for the spotted skunk, if you would please provide that to the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks.
They're the ones that provided it to me.
Then they will give me the information when we talk to them next.
When's that going to be? Is that going to be before the next meeting on this power line?
Yeah, our hearing is in April, so we plan to meet with Wildlife and Parks before then.
What date?
Sir, I don't have a firm date for you at this point.
So you're just giving me information you want me to think that is okay. You don't have a firm date, but you will talk to them between now and then? I mean, that's only, what, 35, 40 days from now? And you're telling me you don't have a meeting scheduled with Department of Wildlife and Parks within the next 45 days?
Again, we are working hand in hand with the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks on this project. And we will talk to them about whatever information we need to hear for this project.
Okay, I think we'll probably move on at this point. I don't see anyone standing to ask a question. So David, I'm going to turn it back to you. Well, we've got one more. Is this a question or would you want to save it for a public comment?
Whatever you want to make it look like. I'm Rick Jesse from Columbus, Kansas. I farm in Crawford County. When you guys get an easement on these people's properties, you just get an easement for the 150 feet. If they're going to a 160 acre farm, you get an easement just for the 150 feet.
That is the width of the easement. Yes, is that your question? Mhm.
How far do you get the easement? You just get an easement for 150 feet?
The width of the easement in the contract is 150 feet,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
You don't do the whole farm.
No, sir.
You don't get an easement for the whole farm? Do you get an easement for the whole farm? Are you sure? Because we had power lines south of us down here and they went through our farms and they took the whole farm. Yes.
Show the exact corridor on your property, and that varies by property. Some people it's just a corner, some people it's a larger portion of the route, but it's not the entirety of the property. You only have the right to that is spelled out in a legal description and an exhibit in the agreement.
Okay, are you sure?
Could I ask clarification? I think what he's trying to ask about is ingress and egress. So do you keep on your easement only, or do you have to have haul roads to get in?
No, so that's a great question. So in many cases, our intention is to access it on right of way. But in cases where we need an access road that's off right of way, landowners are compensated for that, and it's also designated on the exhibit.
But you're just compensated for this little bitty piece you tear up. Even though you drive through the whole place, you just get your measure out and go about 8 feet wide by 200 feet. That's all you pay them, correct? Okay, well, you're different than the other company then.
We're happy to talk to you about your.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Laura again from Coffey County. And as far as your easements are concerned, when you guys go outside of your easement, do you already have something set up for the landowners when you destroy their property outside of the easement lines, or when they just go run trespassing throughout the rest of the property?
So the way that our. For any of the different. Now, if, we hire a contractor, they go off, and they damage crops, we will compensate you for your crops. Well, in any damage to crops are caused by us, it is our responsibility.
And will every landowner have the direct line to whoever it is that we are supposed to contact? Because otherwise it's hiring attorneys and stuff and legal fees and a whole bunch of rigmarole that's very difficult.
discuss what possibly is.
But yes, ma'am, you would have a contact information with the company so that you could reach out to us.
And will that be in writing as well as far as?
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the agreements, you always have a. But during construction, the land team will keep the agent available. And so it's our job to communicate with you.
I'm gonna offer one follow-up too. You know, the KCC has oversight over NextEra because they are a public utility. So any complaints or problems you would have with this, you can also reach out to the KCC for our involvement in it as well.
Is it an aerial easement only? So you can so will you allow these guys to farm the easement? So if somebody wants to put a gas line in, that's no longer gonna happen.
Hello? If anyone's talking, I can't hear or see anything.
It said to leave the breakout room, but my understanding, Commissioner Keen, is that the feed is out. Hi, David.
Hello.
David, where are we?
We're having some technical difficulties. Someone's calling, that might be it.
So we are streaming on YouTube right now, just so you all are aware.
Okay.
But the feed from the public hearing did cut out. And so I have emailed and texted Denise and Linda. And so I know that they're aware of it, but I haven't heard back from them. That's all I know.
So is our feed right now being shared?
Yes, ma'am, on YouTube.
Okay, so we should silence ourselves and take our picture off, and we will do that.
Yeah, well, now we know.
During our feed.
I heard the last two words of that sentence, yeah.
Okay, we can hear you, David. We'll go ahead and resume with the hearing when you're ready.
All right, I'm ready. So do we finished the Q&A and we've brought back the commissioners? Is that where we're at?
Looks like we're waiting on Commissioner Keen.
Okay. Well, thank you to everyone who participated in the Q&A session. I apologize for the technical difficulties. We're doing the best we can. And I think there's Commissioner Keen now, so I'll hand it off to Chair Duffy.
Thank you. I call to order the Kansas Corporation Commission public hearing regarding docket number 23 NETE 585 STG. NextEra initiated this docket to request approval of a siting permit to construct a single circuit 345 kV transmission line of approximately 83 miles in length across Coffey, Anderson, Allen, Bourbon, and Crawford counties. My name is Susan Duffy, and I am serving as the chair of the Corporation Commission. My colleagues, Commissioner Dwight Keen and Andrew French, are joining me, and we thank you for attending this hearing this evening. This hearing now is on the record, and the transcript will become an important part of the official docket file. May I have the appearance of counsel, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Hassan Latif on behalf of myself, Walker Hendricks, and Phoenix Anschutz, representing the commission staff and the public generally.
Does staff have a recommendation regarding notice?
We do, Madam Chair. On February 2nd, the commission issued an order granting motion for procedural schedule, wherein it stated that the second public hearing would be held at Girard Public Library on March 2nd at 6 p.m. That order was served on all the parties in the docket at the time. On February 27th, NextEra filed in this docket its affidavit of publication and notice to landowners, stating that the company had complied with the notice requirements found in statute by publishing notice of the hearing in newspapers having general circulation in every county through which the electric transmission line is proposed for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing. Additionally, the affidavit noted that written notice was served on landowners by certified mail at least 20 days prior to the hearing. Accordingly, staff has examined the notice and asked the commission to find that notice in this matter is proper and that the commission has the authority to convene this public hearing at this time and at this place.
Thank you, Mr. Latif. If there are no objections, I will find that notice was proper and the commission has jurisdiction. Again, this hearing is an important step in our process and we look forward to hearing your comments. We cannot engage in dialogue with you during the proceeding. However, commissioners, if they want, can ask questions for clarification. We will handle the public comments in the same way as the question and answer session, alternating between Zoom, and I don't know if there were any Zoom participants, and those in attending in Girard. For that, I will turn to Assistant General Counsel David Cohen and Director of Public Affairs Linda Berry, who is there in Girard.
Thank you, Chair Duffy. As we did in the Q&A, we will alternate between those on Zoom and those attending in person in Girard. So everyone has an opportunity. If you're on Zoom, please raise your hand or use the raise hand function and Zoom to signal you would like to answer or ask a question. You can find it on the bottom of the screen under the reactions tab. Linda Berry will call on speakers who signed up to speak in Girard in the order they signed up on the speaker list. To make sure everyone who wishes to have the opportunity to speak, we ask you limit your comments to 3 minutes. There's a clock on the screen to help keep track of the time. We'll begin with this in Girard. So Linda, turning it over to you.
Thank you, David. We do have a number of people who've signed up to give public comments, and I suspect after hearing a lot of the question and answers, we'll have more people who may want to make a comment as well. So we'll start here. If you know you'd like to make a comment and you haven't signed up, the public affairs staff is in the back and has a sign up sheet that you feel free to sign up. We'll call you in the order that you sign up. And the first person on my list is Laura Hawkins.
And if they could state where they are from, that would be extremely helpful.
Hello, I'm Laura Hawkins from Coffey County. And as you guys are aware, Kansas is an agricultural state. There is or was in 2019 a statute that stated that regulations courts were to err on the side of agriculture, the agricultural landowner. Agriculture is exempt from regulations in Kansas statute, KSA 47-1825. Short title provides more protection by provisions and amendments cited as the Farm, Animal, Field Crop, and Research Facilities Protection Act. The KSA 47-1825 prevents or helps to prevent the deprivation of withholding animal or other property from the owner permanently or for so extended a period of time that a major portion of the value or enjoyment of the animal or property is lost to the owner, which this line goes against. KSA 47-1827 prohibited acts, criminal penalties. No person shall, without the effective consent of the and owner and the intent to damage the enterprise conducted at the animal facility, damage or destroy an animal facility or any animal or property in or on an animal facility. Violation is subsection AE, facility or crop production is damaged or destroyed to the extent of 20,000 or more. There's also another one for less than 1,000. Now, I understand these statutes and agriculture and stuff. The governmental departments can override that. I understand that. But the provisions of the section shall not apply, like I said, to that. But as a cervid deer farmer, we're licensed and permitted as a domesticated cervid facility by the Kansas Department of Agriculture, which includes the area that NextEra wants to put their power lines through, which is 2 tracks. But it also affects that 3rd tract that I mentioned earlier during the question and answers. This location is where we harvest our livestock, and it prevents us from doing ourselves with this NextEra energy going through. It's going to cost us tens of thousands of dollars. And then KSA 47-1828, the recovery of damages, an equal amount equal to 3 times an actual and consequential damages, actual involving the production of it, so it's 3 times the amount. Anyhow, this is our property that they're wanting to go through, the 2 tracks that it involves, and is right here. By doing so, they will have to clear all of these trees, and by clearing all of these trees, well, we have a high fence here where this fence is going to go through. They would have to move that fence, which is going to cost, if we have to, it's going to be tens of thousands of dollars to move. Are they going to be responsible for paying for that? And by taking all these trees out, that is going to allow people to be shooting our livestock. We have already had a shot. Local law enforcement does not help us. They do not set up rewards. They don't help us. Our reward isn't enough for people to come through and help turn in the people that do it. So how are we going to get repaid for those livestock lost? Or are they going to build a solid wall that can't be shot through?
Laura, we're going to have to stop you at this point. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sorry,
but-
yesterday they had minutes and stuff and I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it's on the screen for anyone who makes a comment. And next is Danny Hawkins.
Yes, my name is Danny Hawkins. I'm from Coffey County, and I'm going to surrender my 3 minutes for my wife so she can finish talking.
So. I know. So anyhow, we also have, when we built this in 2005, we had built our fence up around here so that we can, and we have a power line here, and we have checked into, we're going to replace the pole and build a house here to help watch our livestock and keep, monitor them to keep people from shooting on. By them putting this line in here, that prevents us from building our house there. And we already had some dirt dumped off here. We built the fence around that area for our house to be located in. So you guys are affecting us completely. And then we already have an existing line through here. When I stand underneath of that line, I can feel it vibrating through my body. If I touch a person or an object, I get shocked pretty bad, especially if it's a vehicle. And then the high fence that's here on this side, the electricity sparks on the chain to where it has rusted through from the continual sparking and stuff to where we have to replace that chain. And clear down here on the south gate on our entrance, it does the same thing for the chain as well. If they put a fence running through our property, that is going to make our livestock facility an electrocution area. It already draws more lightning bolts and stuff. So how is that going to do? It's going to decrease the amount of income we have. It affects at their house, our breeding. We take our livestock up here because this is how we harvest them. We cannot take them to a slaughterhouse, a USDA inspected. We have to harvest them here. So that prevents us from any of our income. My husband is planning on retiring in a few years. We've been setting this up so that when he retires, this is our income. That's going to prevent us from having tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. Are we going to get reimbursed for that? And if there's lines added to the lines later, they mentioned bills being on it and stuff.
Thank you, Laura. The next speaker is Nick Hawkins.
Yeah, I'm Nick Hawkins from Coffey County. I'm just gonna yield my minutes and take them to Laura Hawkins.
Okay. If other lines and businesses are added to the line, will they readjust the amounts that they pay us? Are we going to receive annual payments, or are we going to receive a percentage, whichever is higher? Kansas is known for the open plains. Not anymore. It's the poles, lines, windmills. And the location of the poles, even though I know a lot of people are more concerned about going through the middle of the field, we have that as well. We work around it. But going through the end, the farmers, there's not enough room for the farmers to mess with. So they don't even want to farm that whole area down there. So that's even lost. The devaluation of the land that we have. The trespassing of the easements. We have, like I said, we have this other time in here, the other line in here. We have had them trespass. They came up through here and they cut these trees down and stuff. Do we have to hire attorneys and stuff to get that done? The right-of-way easement up here, but we've caught their dogs. They bring their dogs, they try to learn them all over this property. They drive their trucks all over. We asked them to notify us before they came in so that we could open the gate or leave it open. And they just drove through the fence and stretched the fence out through the field. So, I mean, how is that going to affect and the cost of that? As I said, it affects our entire livelihood. It's not just to these two little areas or the 150-foot tract or anything. And actually, okay, Kansas is the heartland of America and farming. What about our right of the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? This definitely is doing away with our right. Most farmers already have a non-farming job. What is Kansas going to do if and when farmers get tired of working around all the poles, their equipment not operating from the interference, having less to farm, their land devalued, their health compromised, and decide enough is enough and it's not worth the sacrifices that farmers make, and they just quit farming?
Thank you, Laura. Our next speaker is Virginia Maka.
Good evening, commissioners. That's kind of a hard act to follow because that's pretty devastating to someone's livelihood. So they were asked in the meeting about stacking lines, and I believe that maybe a more of a broader approach, a bigger conversation with easements that already exist in this area. A lot of people are like, they have 2 easements going down their land. We have people that this line is going over their home. What are the effects? What are the decimals of sound? All these things are unanswered. And, you know, we haven't even got to the part where who's going to be affected by the tariffs and the increases in the electric? And who's going to be paying for this line? And how much are we going to be paying? And how many more farm windmills and solar farms will be added to this line to cause another series of congestions in the payments of those transmission lines? It seems as though that KCC should be there for protection. And I believe that that is the intent of KCC. But we seem to have lost maybe that protection to the Southwest Power Pole. To me, this line really hasn't been in the court of public opinion, a necessity for our citizens in Southeast Kansas. And maybe a broader dialogue, maybe a selection of choices for the solution of this congestion problem would be in order. But from what I heard tonight, there's a lot of people and landowners that haven't been notified. We were only given the names of the landowners a week ago when they made them visible to the public, if you could find them in the documents. So tonight I asked this commission to consider moving back these dates. They surely can't be in stone. There needs to be more broader conversation, and I appreciate your service and the service to Kansas, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Jerome Trokey. Could you speak into the microphone, please, so we can all hear you?
A lot of people know Rick Jesse. And then that bank was up there, it goes right on top of his house. And there's another guy that are neighbors, 2 neighbors where the lines go right over the top of their house, and you can park a combine underneath those lines. And it will shock you like that 1 or 2 ladies was talking about. And so anyway, that the worst thing about it is on their easement, they don't want to pay nothing. They told me $3,500 an acre. You know, on pasture ground, it wouldn't be so bad, but on farm ground, it just destroys your productivity. Because when it goes diagonal through the line, if they'd go parallel, it wouldn't be so bad. And so they said, well, just get them off. And I said, it's like you going down and trying to buy a car for $1,000 when it's worth $50,000. And so anyway, then on a wind turbine, heck, they pay $7,000 each year. And then on the solar panels, they want to pay like $7,000 and $9,000. Now, I can't see how they can look you in the eye and tell you that they want to destroy your land for $3,500 an acre. And so even the banker, we farm to one banker, and anyway, he's straight, it's going to devaluate his land by 35%. You was there last night, and all you people there last night. And heck, they was saying 30% devaluation. And so that one guy up there, he had 640 acres, which is about 4,000 acres, would be about $2.4 million. And they offered 180,000. So that's about 7.5% they offered for cutting his productivity down. Not just one time, then you got to pay income tax on that too yet. So anyway, that Ricky, you better come up here and talk to him. No, I mean, you come up here now. I've got a minute left, 50 seconds left. And so, and I've tried to talk to these guys and they don't know what common sense is. They say common sense isn't very common. And so, see, neither of them is ready to rode on a tractor. And see, we're going to have south driving tractors in 20 years. And you get those poles, we already got existing poles. And then they're not going to be spaced the same, and try to program those things around it. Then if you hit the pole, you're liable. And it's hard when they use eminent domain to take it from you. And then, you know, or you didn't want to get rid of it anyway. And so it's a pretty sad moment anyway. I've been to Fort Scott meeting, our meeting here, and you know, it's a shame that those guys, if they rode a tractor just 5 minutes, they'd know what's going on a little bit.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker is Dean David.
Hello, my name is Dean David, Crawford County. I'll tell you a little bit my situation. I live 828 North 130th Street. My home is, according to the numbers provided by the land agent, the power line will be 205 feet from my home, and the easement will be 130 feet from my home. I asked for someone from NextEra to come out and talk to me through him. No one's ever contacted me. I don't understand what work with you means because no one will talk to me. I think they're just waiting until, too bad, I'm gonna have to take eminent domain, and I don't think that's fair. The map in the packet they're providing everybody, they're dated in 2022 and 2023. Those maps are 6 years old or older. I built a swimming pool behind my house, put a pond on the property. Those are not in the pictures. They're not on the maps. If you look up, you can go Google Earth and pull up the properties. They haven't updated them. I gave in to my wife, put a pool in for the kids and grandkids to play in. Spend a considerable amount of money, and this power line that close to me is going to be detrimental to my land values, not to mention the ag production through there. I don't think eminent domain is an outdated way to take property from people. To come up with those values is hard to do, even with appraisers, because there's no way to say value that. The other issue is there's already an existing easement there. It makes no sense to me. I think that your theory is flawed as far as running power lines parallel. You have now you have twice as wide as easements on properties, more poles on properties. It affects the landowners twice as much as other areas. So it's more detrimental to them. That just makes no sense. If you would combine this into one power line, it allows more flexibility, work around locations of buildings and homes, and you can thread the needle through there. I think there's other areas, I know in Crawford County with less populations, they could try to cross, but they want to use the existing easement next to it. They can't cross over because they don't want to spend the money. But if there's $10 million difference in using this existing easement over the life of this project, that's pennies, and it should really be considered. There's the noise levels people have to live with. I think the proximity of people's homes really need to be weighted higher than some other reasons. And they're going to recoup the money through one way or the other. So over 100 years, a few dollars to change these routes and work and stay away from homes, people, they could do that very easily. And over the life of the project, it'd be minimal. Appreciate you guys listening to us and having a chance to speak our minds. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to make a public comment? Looks like we may have a couple of additional people who've signed up since we started. Our next speaker is Brian Hoover.
I'd like to thank the commission for taking the time this evening to listen to us. During the question and answer that you weren't present for, talked about the congestion issue being the primary reason that this line is being considered, and considering the fact that nearly all the new generation built in the state in the last 15 years is wind, that congestion is wind related. The three lines going out of Wolf Creek will carry 2.5 times the amount of power that Wolf Creek can generate. Wolf Creek isn't causing a congestion problem. It's been there 35 years and got along fine without this line. The Southwest Power Pool is supposed to be assigning the cost of transmission to new generation, and they're failing to do that. I don't know how the interaction between the Kansas Corporation Commission and the SPP works. It seems to me that the KCC should be in the driver's seat as opposed to the Southwest Power Pool, and I was pretty sure that was the way that was operated. When this line is completed, it will in fact allow a lot of energy from Western Kansas to make it to customers farther east. I do fail to see how that benefits Eastern Kansas residents, but I'll leave that to you to make that decision. The problem I see with this is that the Southwest Power Pool's interconnect transmission request queue is huge now. And when this line is completed, there'll be a proliferation of wind and solar systems requesting to get on it. So 5 or 6 years from now, you're going to be in the same place you are today. And 7 or 8 years from now, there'll be another group of people in another room just like this somewhere else as you add more lines to let more generation being generated in Kansas piped out of the state. I recognize that there's been some DC lines promoted over the years and get a lot of kickback, and so we're not talking about that. But if we decided that we want to proliferate wind and ship it farther east, let's just bite the bullet and do this once rather than just continue to do this over and over and over. For all you people who are worried about having a transmission line across your property, I live south of in the south end in Neosho County. I have a transmission line that runs across pasture of mine and their annoyance. I feel sorry for the people who may have to live next to them. But I also live in the middle of the Neosho Ridge wind farm, the nearest turbine being 3,000 feet from my house. If you don't have to wear earplugs to sleep in your own bed at night, count yourself lucky, because we do. And that's what you're going to have more of in Eastern Kansas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'd like to call Roger Comsher to the, and I may have mispronounced that, I apologize.
Roger Lomchek, Pittsburgh, Kansas, and Crawford County. My question or my comments for the commissioners are we were told that the project was chosen because it saves about $10 million in construction costs. The problem is nothing was factored in for loss of property value, loss of tax revenue for localities, loss of earning potential for that property through the lifetime of that property. And between those, the $10 million is nothing. This is something that's going to affect people's property values when they retire, when they sell their land, the production that they can make with that land for the rest of their lives. And compared to the $10 million of construction costs, that's a huge impact for how many, do we know how many people are on this affected here just directly, the property owners? It's got to be thousands. There's a lot of people whose lives you're permanently affecting by putting this line in instead of choosing the more complex but less impactful option of running on existing lines and upgrading their capabilities. Those right-of-ways exist. The lines are already there. We've been told by the NextEra people that would be a more complicated situation. They got lawyers. Evergy has lawyers. I'll bet they can figure it out. It doesn't take that much work to decide how to run lines in concert on a common path. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker is Jacob, and I'm sorry I can't read the last name. Come on up.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. Jacob from Crawford County. So the decision is obviously your guys's. The big thing that a lot of these guys are speaking for, I don't think very few people in favor of this. NextEra is okay with helping us reroute some of this, but it's going to take time. I mean, but once you guys approve it, eminent domain is gonna happen. Cause these guys, they don't care at that point. So you guys, as the three commissioners, have a tough decision to make. Do you guys listen to these taxpayers or not? That's the thing, and that's a big decision you guys are gonna have to make. Because you gotta remember, you guys are taxpayer funded. And so these guys sound like they're taxpayer funded as well. So if you don't mind, give these guys some time, because every bit of this, the good thing about studies is we can push it back. Guys, your timetable of May 24th doesn't have to happen. You guys can turn it down that day. We can do some more studies and we can reroute this power to not affect these farmers like it's going to. Another question about this is the easement. It's not an aerial easement. So in the future, if they decide that they want to, they can run a gas line or fiber optics down through there because it does get done. So that nullifies their ability to farm these properties. So the decision is up to you guys. We want to put the pressure on you because at that point, you guys can move this timetable a little bit. I mean, this doesn't have to happen right now. I mean, May 24th, 2 months that's not gonna be enough time for these guys, every one of these people, and the people that are unspoken here today. I mean, there are several people that didn't show up at this meeting because they couldn't. And they would like to have the opportunity to re-engage with these guys because they didn't get time, for one. Most of these guys, some of these guys just hearing about it for the first time. And that's not a good way to do business. And like I said, timetables can be adjusted. We can start working together because I'm sure most of these guys would love to work and make sure it's a better America, better Kansas, better Crawford County, better Coffey County, better Neosho County. But we're going to need the time to make that happen. And there's just not enough time in 2 months. We're going to need a little more time. Tough decision.
Thank you, Jacob. Matt Adams. Is Matt Adams still here? Okay, we'll pass on that one. You are free to submit a written comment however you'd like to. David Bills. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to make a comment before the commission tonight?
Linda, was there anybody online who wanted to make a comment?
That was my next question for David Cohen.
So I've been keeping an eye on it and so far nobody has raised their hand.
Anyone like to make a comment? The commissioners are here waiting to hear from you.
I don't know if I can make another comment or not. I'm Laura Hawkins from Coffey County. During question and answers, I don't know about this, but we had a gentleman in here that mentioned that there was a spotted skunk that was just found in the area here recently. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just what was being discussed. So if in fact it has been found and is in this area, there needs more time to be some research on that as well, as far as the skunk and the location.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else? I'm not. Can you walk up to the microphone, please? No? Okay. Okay. Okay, last, yes.
Roger Lomchek, Crawford County. Let's just take a moment. I wanted to point out to the commissioners, I think the mood of the room is that a lot of people don't feel like they have anything to say because it's been said already. I think it could be comfortably stated that the vast majority of the people in this room agree with the points that have already been made, and that's why they don't feel that they need to speak. But please consider that this is not just a half a dozen people with these opinions. This is something that the entire room feels strongly about. And were you to take the time to come to multiple locations in each county, you'd hear that loud and clear out of every room that you go into. Thank you.
Thank you. David, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to you.
Well, actually, I think we're.
I believe,
Chair Dusty
believe,
takes over.
right, okay. All right. First of all, there's a packed house sitting there in the public library at Girard. So on behalf of the commissioners, I would like to thank all of you for taking the time tonight to be here. And we did hear and see the applause after the last speaker. So I'm assuming you all agreed with his comment. Okay. I would like to remind everyone that the public comment period is open till 5 p.m. March 9th. The materials handed out this evening outline the 3 ways in which comments can be submitted for our consideration. And that information is also available on our website. And I do know for a fact that we read written comments as well. And in a lot of dockets, those are filed as well. Although I do believe hearing from all of you is very valuable for us. In terms of next steps, the commission will hold an evidentiary hearing on this matter beginning April 26th at 9 a.m. It will be via Zoom. You do not need to come to Topeka. We are doing it by Zoom so that, again, folks can participate in your location. The hearing will be broadcast on the KCC YouTube channel, and it's really easy to get there. The commission will issue a decision in this matter on or before May 24th. This concludes the public hearing. Again, on behalf of the other 2 commissioners, we appreciate your attendance this evening, and we appreciate your comments. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe going home. I know the weather's not supposed to be the best towards the end of the evening. So thank you.